Welcome to the Health Babes podcast with Doctors Becky Campbell and Crystal Home, where we talk everything health.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Health Babes podcast. Today we have Jenn Pike on. Jenn is a functional diagnostic nutritionist, medical exercise specialist, and best-selling author of the Simplicity Project and the Simplicity Sessions podcast. Jenn is the founder of the Hormone Project and Synced, an online movement studio designed for women based on the phases of their cycle and the moon. Jenn's core mission is to help educate women in all things health, wellness, and connection to the audacious women they truly are with more simplicity and ease. Welcome to the show, Jenn. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well. I've had a little, we're talking about our kids missing school. So that's what's been going on for the last few weeks, but we're here. So we're good. And they're at school today.
They are, yes.
Yay. So, all right, well, let's jump right in. So let's talk a little bit about, I really want to know your journey. Like what got you into helping women with hormones health?
So I've been, right out of the gates. For me, I've been in this industry now working for 24 years. And when I first started, it was very much in the fitness environment. I was teaching group exercise classes and everything was in a gym. And when I came out of school, I worked a lot with athletes. I was working with professional hockey players, and that was fun. It was great. It was a really cool environment to be part of. One of the biggest things I took away from that is they had a community and a village of support of, the nutritionist, the chiropractor, the massage, the, mindset coach, all of this. And I was like, wow, look what can be possible when you have, this village around you supporting you. And while I was doing that, I was also personal training part-time where I grew up, and I was working with all women there. And majority of them were moms, and I wasn't a mom yet. And I started to find myself being more interested and inspired by working with these women than I were the athletes, because they didn't have the village, they didn't have the community, and they were trying to carve out, this small bit of time for themselves. And really, they were showing up to the sessions with me to find themselves, to say hello. And I was just really intrigued by that. And so for years, it was just about exercise and movement. And then I started to bring nutrition into it as well too. And that was good for years. And then I started to feel like there was something we were missing. Some of their symptoms that they were coming to me with, like the fatigue, the hair loss, the waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to fall back asleep, menstrual cycle irregularities, all these different things. It was like the movement and the nutrition would help, but it wouldn't really move the needle in the same way. And so I went back to school again. And my whole background had been as a medical exercise specialist. And so I went back to school again and started to really understand more about blood work and about functional testing and a lot of what we were missing, and started to fill the gap, to create that bridge. And then I became a mom myself. And then I was like, oh, now I get it. I had been listening to the women that I was training and working with, but I really didn't get it until I became a mother myself. And I was like, okay, so this is life is different. The way my body feels is different. I need to really show up and start to pay attention. And it's just been this really incredible evolution. And anytime I was going through anything in my own body or witnessing it with them, I would, it would just have me dive a little bit deeper into what's really going on. And I started to create a really great network of colleagues and community, and building programs and outsourcing. And it was like, look, this isn't my scope of practice, but I think this is what's going on with this woman, and this is the support she needs. And really just, that has gotten me to where I am now, and running programs like the Hormone Project and Synced, which is based on the 4 phases of our menstrual cycle, and really supporting us through perimenopause and menopause and beyond. So it's been a really fun journey getting to here. And I just love the learning of it all.
And it's so true that it's when you experience it yourself, you can really, really help people because you know where they're coming from, Yeah. And, speaking of, being a mother and a woman, why do you feel the dismissal of our symptoms as women or mothers is so common?
I think there's a few reasons. I think that is what society and, the system and what history has taught us is like, this is your role. This is, these are the cards you're dealt. These are the choices you made as a mom. Like, you're going to be tired. This is the job. You've got multiple little people to be taken care of. Plus you have to take care of the home. And then, as you go back in time in history for us as women, we really fought for the privilege and the right and the ability to have our career and our family. And so then you tack that onto it, you're building a business or you're working in a corporate industry or whatever your job and career is, on top of still needing to fulfill the needs of your child or multiple children, your partner, your home, all of that. And I think that it's just, we as women also, we are co-creating the dismissal because a lot of us allow it. Like, yeah, you're right. And we get together as girlfriends, clank the glasses of wine over how exhausted we are. And we just normalize it. And when we go to a doctor and we're like, no, something is actually off. Like, this is what I'm feeling. Like, look at me. I don't recognize myself. Can you run this panel or run that lab? A lot of it is, well, tell me how your stress is going. Tell me how. And so you just start to see the shrinking of us having the courage to use our voice and really advocate for ourselves and say, no, like, this is how I used to feel, irrespective of what's been going on. This is what's going on in my body now. And then finding that level of support where someone will hold the space for you, truly listen, and start to work with you on that level. So, I've seen a big change in the last, I would say, decade, but more so, I think 4 to 6 years in women's health. But I feel like we're just at the beginning of the change.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like, so many people, and I'm sure you hear this too, and this actually happened to me, you do go to the doctor and you do tell them how you feel. And if that you don't have a screaming, lab number that's out, then it's, well, here's an antidepressant, or, that you're just dismissed. So
yeah,
it's frustrating, but it is really, it's exciting to see our community talking more and more about women's health and about the cycle and of the importance of the different phases of the cycle. And I love that. So
yeah. And it is going to take us, it's going to take us as women being the ones to pave the way and to continue to show up and to do this, because I don't know about you, but in the, majority of early part of my career, my mentors were men. And I really didn't see the other women, showing up and doing the thing. And I definitely, as a business owner, as a mother, I was like, where are the other moms that can show me a different way? Because I'm not interested in hustling and in grinding and in, taking on so much of that masculine energy. And for years, I allowed myself to be mentored by all the men. And I took on this very masculine approach to how I was doing everything. And then I kept burning out. And I kept thinking I was the problem. And like, okay, something's wrong with me. Like, why don't I have the stamina? Why can't I nail it down? And it was, hitting burnout and, essentially living on the couch for a long period of time that finally I was just like, I am actually not the issue here. The approach that I have been taking and how I've allowed myself to be mentored, that's what has to shift. And so it's like having conversations like this and seeing more women rise up it's so amazing.
Right. Like more nurturing, not, hey, drive yourself into the ground.
Yeah. And that's the only way you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, hormones and, a lot of people have heard of the adrenal hormones and the thyroid hormones, but what's the connection between our adrenal health and our thyroid function?
Well, they're in a relationship together. And so when I have worked with very few women who have, thyroid issues going on, that when you spend time with them and you go back into their health history, did not have pre-existing adrenal symptoms and adrenal issues that were happening and going on. And, our adrenals, like they're our alarm system. They're our internal SWAT team. They are there to help us to understand when things are in balance or out of balance, or when our stress response is appropriate, or if we're getting stuck in that, fight, flight, or freeze, or a lot of what I find happens in women right now, which is just like, I just don't give a shit type of energy and mode. Like, I don't care. They don't have anything left in them. And when these types of things are happening behind the scenes in the adrenals, or the woman who's not sleeping throughout the night, or her blood sugar is not balanced, whatever her specific symptoms are that are coming up, there is like a toggle. It is pulling on the lever of the thyroid, and that can really impact not only our TSH levels, that signaling mechanism from the brain to the thyroid, but then how well the thyroid is able to actually produce its hormones, and then next step of creating that conversion. And, we've been taught as well too, that our body, we have departments. And it's like, okay, if something's going on in this area, it's only affecting this one area. And that couldn't be further from the truth. We're this entire system, and everyone is supporting everyone else. And so when the adrenals become neglected, or the adrenals are the thing that we keep squeezing and pushing and ignoring, it's not going to take too much longer for the thyroid to start to show those symptoms of being stressed as well.
Yep. And vice versa too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about being your own advocate. Cause I know you talk about this a lot, having the courage to be your own advocate and take charge of your health. If no one's listening, you have to do this. So let's talk more about that.
Yeah. So I think in the beginning, it comes down to the first advocate and way you need to do that for yourself is actually trusting your own body, right? Like believing when she communicates with you. And so paying attention to your signs and symptoms, when it's things like your cycle, if there's irregularities or different things, I really think there's a lot of power in tracking that. If you start to notice at certain times the month, your symptoms are worse than other, if you notice when you eat certain things that your body has a reaction mentally, physically, or emotionally, like I think the first step is really starting to track and keep your own information, your own data about your body. And that what it does for women is it really helps you to start to build up, kind of proof for when you go in to see your PCP, your doctor, your primary care practitioner. It's like, look, I'm not just saying this today because I've had a bad day today or I didn't sleep last night. This is actually what I've been tracking. This is what I am noticing in my body. And when you go in asking for what you deserve, which is to have that full panel, not just the, regular mundane blood work, requests like, I want to have my thyroid tested beyond my TSH. And part of this is we have to be working to educate women on knowing what it is they even need to ask for before they get into the office. And then also knowing, how do you handle it if you're told no? How do you really honestly nowadays have to learn how to circumvent the medical system so many of us have grown up in or trusting in, and understand that there's ways out, outside of that. And there are naturopathic physicians, and there's functional medicine doctors, and, there's different labs that you can access online and those types of things. And really asking yourself, like I always say to women, because that is the community that I work with, if this was your child that had these different symptoms, and your child better than anyone, and the way your child is showing up is not the child that you know, there is no way you would just accept, this is just normal, or go and fill this prescription, or, you just need to take a nap. You would never accept that as being okay and acceptable for your child. Don't accept that for yourself. Our intuition as women, this is really a superpower that we have. And we know when we meet someone and our gut immediately is like sketchy, like there's something off there. We know when something isn't true. We know when something is true. And so I think part of being an advocate for yourself is you have to trust yourself and use that to flex that courage muscle to ask for the care that you deserve.
I agree. That's why I really work hard to kind of explain the whole thyroid panel to people and explain what each marker means and why it's important, because and I honestly think that a lot of general practitioners don't understand that themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why their answer is there's no reason to run a full thyroid panel. It's because if they had one, they wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. And a lot of doctors will actually be honest about that and say, like, I've had a lot of the women that I work with, they've come back and said, my doctor was really honest and just said, I don't understand what that is. Or especially with things like here in Canada, when we request reverse T3, the amount of doctors that would tell their patients that's not actually a thing. Like there isn't a test for that. That literally is what they will say. Or, and I can appreciate this from the physician, is I don't know what to do with those results. And I'm responsible. If I create the requisition, I'm responsible for telling you how to support that. And I don't know. So I can respect that. Where I have a problem is that you then need to be able to connect that woman with someone who can support and help her with that.
Right. And most doctors don't say, I don't know how to interpret that. And so then they, just say, you don't need that. And that's where the problem is. So let's talk about our nervous system, because our nervous system plays such an important role in everything, stress and all of that. What is the root of our nervous system feeling symptoms that everyone ignores, including us?
Well, I think what's important to understand about how our nervous system functions, because this is like, we live our entire life through our nervous system. Like, we experience it on a cellular level, but we're living it and feeling it. The ebb and flow is in that nervous system. And for so many people, when we talk about something like stress, they'll automatically think about the big boulders of stress, right? So a traumatic experience, something that feels major, an overwhelming calendar, kids being home for a long period of time, the last 2 years of the world. And yes, that's all stress. But what a lot of people don't realize is that stress can also be a positive stress. Like, you're preparing to move to, a new home, you're going on a trip, you're planning your wedding. That could be it. But stress is also imagined and perceived. So we don't recognize a lot of the time that our body is perceiving that we are under a load of stress that's taxing the nervous system. And that could come in many ways. It could come in from consuming certain foods that have a trigger to our immune system or our body that for us, we're like, well, it tastes good. I don't get gas and bloating, so I must be fine. But there could be some other reaction and way it's showing up. It could be that you watch something scary that your body does not have the ability to know. Like, don't worry, Jen's just watching a scary show. Your heart rate increases. You start to sweat. Your pupils dilate. Your body is like, holy mother, like we are in it. This is not a show. Like, we're experiencing it right now. We also take on the stress, and our nervous system's impacted by what other people around us are going through. And I think that, no one knows this better than parents, because when your child's going through something, like, you feel like you are going through it too, and it impacts you. I can't drive past a car accident without like, oh my gosh, like wondering how those people are and if everything is okay. And so this is the toll of what's happening on us all the time. And then we still need to show up and live our life and do all of the things. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not really well supported, this is where we start to feel that resiliency wane. This is where we start to feel the fatigue set in. We start to feel ourselves being more irritated. We start to feel less excited and, motivated to do things in life, to follow through. This is where we can start to feel like everything is kind of dismantling on the inside. And it's because on some level it is. And so if we can identify that and really recognize, like in my practice, yes, we are looking at labs and those types of things, but I spend a lot of time having conversation with women, because we don't even know sometimes, like, we also as practitioners, right? Like, we assume this is what's going on. And then you have one conversation with someone who just talks to you a little different, asks a slightly different question. All of a sudden you hear yourself saying things where you're like, I did not even know that I felt like that, or that was bothering me. And I think that is a big part of us being able to tap into the nervous system, is it's having those conversations.
Yeah. And it's, with what you were saying, in addition to lab work and all that, it's really important. There's so many wonderful tools now to help with the nervous system, help activate the vagus nerve and calm us down, and, meditation and breath work and, all the different things that, go along with, supplements are great and diet's great, but you have to be kind of doing all of it. So, I always am referring people to different programs depending on who it is, how to really give them the best support, mentally, and calm down that nervous system as well.
Well, what I love about everything you just said there is those are all free. Like, right. Our breathing is free. Meditating is free. Like, putting on your shoes and walking outside is free. Getting sunlight is free. There's so many things that we can do that cost us nothing.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's hard for people to connect to, because it's like, well, if it doesn't cost anything or it's not hard, then how could that change anything?
Yeah, I know. Or if they don't see an immediate response, I think. Mm-hmm. And I always tell people, I'm like, meditation or, something of that form it's like taking your brain to the gym. You have to practice it over and over, and then you're going to start to see more and more results. But, it's not going to happen with one session.
Right. Yeah.
So.
It's like, I say right now, it's the new flex, like we can imagine like, curling the weight or pressing the weight and flexing that muscle, but there's something else in us. There's a different tone that we're trying to achieve right now. And truly, like, even when we talk about the word tone, it's not about, tone in a muscle is an appearance. What that actually means is you're increasing your muscle mass on your body, but tone is something that happens in our nervous system. And
one thing I love, and we talk about, like free, cheap, easy, is the cold showers. That's extremely, and people are like, cold showers to reduce anxiety. What are you talking about? And I'm like, no, really, it really does. So, like the Wim Hof method, or, whoever you want to follow with that kind of thing. And that's why you see people doing all these cold plunges lately.
Yeah. Well, I live in North America, where it is quite cold right now. And there are still, like where we are in BC, the lake doesn't actually freeze here. And there's an entire group, and the man who runs it, his company is called the Breath Army. And they're all Wim Hofers, and they go every single week, multiple times a week, and they do their plunge, and then they do a hike after in the snow. And I'm just sitting there drinking my warm latte, like, oh my God, I'll just stick to my 30 seconds at the end of my
shower. Yeah, that's what I do. I do try to do about a minute of a cold at the end of the shower. I make it cold. And it does help.
It does. It's so interesting to me because in the morning, if I do it, it's very invigorating. But in the evening, when I do it, it's also very grounding. So it's interesting that, you can utilize it. And that's another thing actually too, is that when we're talking about like night and day, like even our relationship to light, supporting our nervous system, supporting our adrenals. I mean, one of the best things we can do for adrenal support is reestablishing our relationship to light and that circadian rhythm. So getting up in the morning and even allowing yourself to just get natural light exposure versus staying, cocooned in the dark can have a big impact.
Yeah. I always tell my patients, I say, if you're working from home, open all of your blinds on your windows and don't use artificial light. Just get as much natural light as you can. And then on your breaks, just go stand outside for a few minutes, during the day, because that's what you want. And then at night, you want to keep everything like calm and quiet and more dark.
Yeah.
So that's why TV at night is not really your friend.
Not awesome. No, I've just recently started using red light therapy in the last couple of months. And I'm really loving that too. I find that really calm and grounding. And I have it in front of me, and I'll do like my stretches in the morning, or I'll journal in front of it. And I've been finding that really helpful as well.
I do too, but I do it, I have Hashimoto. So I put it, aim it at my thyroid, or I'll turn around and do it like at the back of my neck because I have some neck issues, and I love it. I mean, it's really neat. All this stuff that's coming out, it really does work. So there's a lot you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jenn, why don't you tell everyone where we can find you, like more information on you?
Yeah. So the best place, I spend probably most of my time over on Instagram, which is Jenn with 2 N's Pike. And then my website, jennpike.com. And I have a podcast, the Simplicity Sessions as well, where I talk about women's health and hormones. And also, having the audacity as women to be able to fully embrace all that we are. I feel like, women just, they fascinate me. And I feel like so many of us are living our life to like just the bare tip of our potential. And I've been playing around a lot with these different conversations with women. And we are really amazing people. I will say that.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for coming on. You've been amazing. And we've been trying to have this conversation for so long. So I'm glad we finally got to do it.
Yes. Well, I am looking forward to having you on my podcast as well. And I want to say thanks for having me here today.
Yeah. And thanks everybody for listening. We hope you have an amazing day.